Aaron, do I have permission to film your presentation?
Yes, you do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, got that on. Well, good morning, you guys. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to give a really quick introduction of myself and why I'm here helping you guys with a really important topic of relationships. And that's really what this is about. Darren Curtin's my name. I'm the team leader for Keller Williams Norco. And I had the opportunity back in 2011 of being the #1 team leader across the United States with Keller Williams. I recruited over 143 agents in 1 year, which is a pretty high number. And how I did it was, and it's not one of these by the way, but how I did is I had an amazing team around me that was just, we were one cohesive group, I guess was the best way to say it. And what made that awesome was it gave me the ability of going out and doing what I want to go do. And finding out later on that that's just who I am and that's my personality, I started thinking to myself for a minute, was it happenstance that we happened to get this group of people together, or was this by design that we happened to get the right team together that enabled us to grow so fast? And if you start doing more and more research on it, you find that your spouse, if you guys are married, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your friends, they all come together with you usually because of who you are and who they are. Each person's bringing something to the table. And I always laugh when I walk into a specific restaurant and maybe the waitress is repulsive to me. Does that ever happen to you guys? You walk in and you're just like, this isn't going to work real well. And no matter what she does or he does, they cannot get past this barrier that you've created in your mind, or vice versa. You can't get past that barrier they've created in their mind. And I've come to the conclusion that we are all great people. We all have very, very specific reasons for being here. And if you're put in the right spot, you're going to have a really, really high chance of success. Okay? So what I did is I put together this tiny little presentation. We're going to go through it at a rapid pace. We're also going to go through as to who you are. And by the time I'm done with this, I'm really, really looking forward to you guys understanding who you are. And moreover than that is how you reflect other people and how you can be more of a receptive person to other people out there with different profiles. Does that make sense? It's because of learning that, which by the way we've all learned as kids, we just are not going to put labels on it, but it's through learning that I truly believe I was able to get in front of so many people and recruit them that particular year. Okay? Everybody ready?
Ready.
All right. I'm also the kind of person that if you have a question, I want you guys to stop me right away. And what I found is that you'll actually stop learning if you have a question burning in the back of your mind, but you're not willing to say it, okay, or you don't think it's the appropriate time. Just stop me and ask it, okay? I can pick right back up where we are. Yes, sir.
What's the acronym DISC stand for?
Couldn't tell you. It actually has to do with the specific labels of profiles. Either a D person, an I person, an S person, or a C person. And we'll go through each one of those. You'll get a clearer understanding in just a second. Good question. Anybody else? And just so you know, it's actually not DISC. It's actually a little bit different. If you look at your paper, it's actually IDSC is the way you read that. They just put the word, we use the word DISC because it's easier to say instead of IDSC, right? Okay. And plus, if you're a USC fan, I know you guys are getting excited about that. Okay, we're going to go through it. All right. So we put together this little cheesy little PowerPoint, but I think it's kind of cool. It actually has a lot of meaning to it, and we'll go through the process. Okay? So who you are and the way you act is going to depend on what your lifestyle turns out to be. Okay? So let's take a look at the 4 different types. You have the D, which is the dominant, a driver. I is influencing and inspiring. S is stable and steady. C is compliant and correct. So I want you guys to do me a favor just for a minute and pull out your DISC profile that you guys did, that little test. Okay? And on that, you're going to see 3 columns. Everybody follow along with me. You're going to see 3 columns on that. You have the very first column, which is what is called most, and that's at the very bottom. You have the second column, which is least, and then 3 is the difference. You guys see that? The only column that we're going to care about and talk about today is that middle column, and that's your core self. Okay? And the way we read that core column is if you look at that core column, you're going to see a bunch of squiggly lines and points. Do you see that? There's also a midline that sits right here in the middle. Everybody with me? The midline that sits in the middle is not amazing? Okay. We're going to read everything above that. The highest point on that graph is what your letter starts with that you are. Does everybody make sense? That makes sense to everybody? Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. So if I look at this, I'm going to look at Kevin's for a minute. His point, which is the highest point on that middle graph, is an I. Everybody with me? So his profile in this particular case is an I, and the next one down is a C. IC. Okay? This particular graph, you're going to be an IS. Okay, does everybody see where they fit?
What if they're equal, if your middle are the same as that?
Which yours are not a middle graph, but if they are, it would be, I would go backwards to the next graph over and see that you are actually an IS. Okay? Middle graph is the only one I'm concerned about, the one that says least. Okay? That's your core belief. What that means, guys, is in a fire, or when you're under pressure or under duress, that's the person that you're going to become. Okay? And I always laugh at that. Does everybody watch Seinfeld? Who watches Seinfeld? Okay. So the fire, George Costanza runs out of the room and knocks the old lady over. Okay, that's who you are in this particular case. All right?
Well said.
It's one of my favorite shows. Why Jerry's not around. Anyways, okay. Now, here's the cool part, you guys. There's not one right answer. There's not one right personality. There's not one profile that you want to be more than the others. Does that make sense? Okay? I happen to be one profile. Everybody else's here is their own profile. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to embrace in that. Okay? A lot of people say, oh gosh, I wish I was a C. I wish I was an I. Gosh, I wish I was a D, a dominant driver. I wish I was that person. And what happens is that you want to be that person, and there's a really cool reason why you want to end up with that person in relationships. Does that make sense? So I'm going to give you an exact idea here. I'm a D, dominant driver. I don't see anything. I'm highly focused. And I really enjoy people that have an S profile. And the reason why is because that's what my mind is searching for all the time. I'm looking to rest and relax with people. And I get to do that when I'm dealing with these S-type profiles. Does that make sense? So the fact that you want to be like that person might mean that you actually want to be with that person. Okay? Now, I don't want to cause any divorces in here or anything like that. All right? But I do believe there's a correlation upon who you're with if it matches in this type of profile. Okay? Any questions so far? Good. Okay, no perfect style. All right?
Hey Darren, real quickly, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So, if you have somebody else that you work with do the profile for you,
Yes.
so you've got the profile of who you think you are, and you give it to somebody else, which one is the more reliable?
You had to have done the profile yourself.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay.
I also had it done by somebody who works with me every day.
Oh, super. Okay. So if we look at that graph again, I'm going to steal this just for a second, sir. If I look at this graph,
Well, you want, here, these are the two.
perfect. Okay. Wow, interesting.
Are they similar? 80%.
Should I leave now?
So Peter created this one.
It says at the top if it was created by him.
This is really cool. I'm going to get to this in a little while.
Okay.
I promise you I will. And the reason why I'm going to get to it is because it's the way he sees you. And the way he sees you is, this is a coaching moment, okay? So the way that he sees you is, and depending on when this was done, you could have been a little controlling at that moment. And if you were a little controlling at that moment, you may have said something to him that was not conducive to him. Does that make sense? And so your C would have popped out.
Okay.
But normally who you are is a DS. And what that means, I'm going to put you in a room, and I want you you're happy just getting it done in the room. You get to dream and wish and everything else in that room, and then when you're darn good and ready, you get to come out of that room. That's your true profile. But what he saw that day was a driver, and then maybe a little bit of a controlling driver. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, okay? Without getting too, yeah, without getting too deep.
No, he gets the reward for bringing it out in the open.
Okay, yeah. So there's also a blending process, okay? And so if you look at your middle graph again, anything above that midline is who you are. So in this particular case, Kevin was an IC. Okay, ICS. Do you see that? We're looking at the middle graph. Everything above the midpoint, starting with the highest point, is who he is. ICS. Does everybody see how that works? I wish I had this on a thing. I'm going to have to change this presentation a little bit. You might only be 2 letters. Okay? Mine's a DI profile. He happens to be a 3-letter profile. And there's combinations which mean different things. We'll get to that, what that means in just a few minutes. Okay. Does everybody can tell me what their profile is?
Straight I.
Straight I.
IS.
IS. IS.
DC.
DC. Ooh, okay.
DI.
DI.
SC.
SC.
DS.
DI.
Sir? I keep calling you sir. I'm trying to get your name.
CD,
CD.
right? CD.
Yes, because I'm going to go backwards against that. Correct.
You say it's this graph, right?
Yes. So you are an IS. What are you?
Same.
Same.
I'm a DIC.
Yes.
Did you grade this? That's messed up.
I happen to be the same, so we're
Damn
you
it.
are an ICS. Yeah, highest to lowest.
C.
Straight C.
And I was like.
That's okay.
IS.
IS. Interesting.
SI.
Yes. You go ahead.
I'm an
I'm sorry.
ISC.
Ooh,
ID.
ID.
Steve is an ID,
Yes, he is.
and C is like down at the bottom.
That's right.
Does anybody have one of
Has
those?
no compliance, doesn't care. You'll make the mistake and beg for forgiveness later.
But
Okay.
the good news is I'm a high C, so we
Yeah.
can level each other
Yeah,
out. So.
nice. Okay, any questions on who you are? We're going to go through who you are, but I just want to make sure you guys know what profile you are. So we go through this, you're going to kind of plug into yourself here, okay? All right. This is an important piece to it. The DISC will help you treat people the way they want to be treated. You see, one of the biggest things about recruiting, when I walk into an office, and I'm sitting with this gentleman here, is the faster I engage with him, the faster I get the opportunity of doing what I call going deep with somebody, right? You get to peel the onion back. What happens when you peel an onion back in the kitchen? You start crying, right? I'm not asking to cry, but a lot of times you peel that onion back, you're getting the emotional side of somebody. And if you tie in with the emotional side of somebody, you have them for life. Especially women. Okay? So, one of the things that I like to do is I assess somebody when they walk in based upon 2 things. One, do they reach their hand out and ask to shake my hand? If they're walking as a couple, and I give out a business card, which one of them is going to reach out and take the business card? That's the dominant one, correct? And when the dominant one takes my card, that's the person I'm going to connect with. And the faster I can connect with them, the faster I can ask questions to them that might be a little bit deeper than just surface level questions. And if I get the surface level questions out of the way and I can go deep with them, I'm really going to connect with them on it. And that's the important thing about this business. It's about building that relationship, right? So those that are here as our mortgage bankers, and a little bit of the way our system works in here, you want to connect with the realtor as fast as you possibly can. And the way we're going to connect to that realtor is asking some questions about them, isn't it? Right? So Scott, tell me, are you married?
Yes.
Great. And how long have you been married?
7 years.
7 years. What's your wife's name?
Diana.
Diana. Look at the way he's sitting. Diana.
A little nervous talking.
7 years.
But I was sitting like that before.
We'll talk about that. Our shirts tucked in, right? So being a D as an example, I'm lucky that I actually have socks that semi-match this morning. Because I put on a brown one or a black one and pull whatever comes out of the drawer as fast as I possibly can. So knowing these types of things we're going to learn right now is going to help you when someone walks in the door. Does that make sense? Okay. So what's a D look like? Picture's worth 1,000 words. We are kind of like a whirling dervish. Just get in there and we're going to get it done. We ask the question of what. Okay? It's only 3 to 5% of the population. So in this particular case, you don't really need to, the chances of you running into a high D profile, which is a lot in this room, which is really interesting to me, is going to be slim to none. Okay? Because it's only 3 to 5% of the population. This particular room has a large amount, and it's because we gravitate towards the leadership side of things. So there's going to be managers in here and that kind of thing. You're going to have more than you normally would have. General D characteristics. So we're dominant, direct, demanding, decisive, determined, problem solver, doer, not a talker, defiant, risk taker, self-starter. So everybody, D's in the room, raise your hand. Those of you guys that know, are we close to that?
Yes.
Right on.
We want to win, like to plan for the future, we like new ideas, like results, like to be your own boss, like to move fast, like a challenge, and we like freedom. Give a D autonomy, give them a challenge, and they're going to tear the world apart. Right? You put a D inside a box and make them do something in that box, and they're going to be trying to break that box over time. They're going to break you after a while. Potential weakness of a D, we overstep authority, we dislike routine, attempt too much at once, cause anxiety in others. Okay? May resist participation as part of a team. Okay? This will all come together, you guys. Just hang tight. Greatest advantage of a D is to be taken advantage of. Let me give you an example. If I would have charged for this particular course, which I didn't, knowing that there are Ds that own this company or that run this company, the thing that I would not want to do is to make sure I did not take advantage of that D. If you are working with a D client as an example in your mortgage, right? You're writing the papers, you're talking about things. The last thing you want to do is to have them feel like they're being taken advantage of. Because the minute they're taken advantage of is the minute they lose the sale. Okay? Now, go to a personal level for a minute. Now, I'm going to touch on this very briefly. I'm a high D profile. I was being taken advantage of by my wife for 18 years. My wife and I are no longer together. We're going through a divorce. Does that make sense? It
true?
It's doggone true.
Okay.
It took me 18 years to figure out I was being taken advantage of. But now that I know that I'm being taken advantage of, it's like a knife. She doesn't exist in my book. Okay? And I love my kids, and she's a great lady. I'm not doing that. But understand, that's where you draw the line. So you high D's in here, right? You burn the bridge. Show of hands one more time, we'll prove this. Who's been in a relationship before and then broke up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend? What happens when you break up? Yeah, every one of you, raise your hand. What happens when you break up with that person?
I don't remember that person.
They don't exist, right? You don't have Facebook. Do you ever go back to them and try it again?
No.
Never. There are other profiles in this room we'll talk about in a minute that will try it again and again and again because they think that person may come to the table. And that's okay. D's just don't do that. So when we're working in a mortgage arena with them, or you're working with a real estate agent, and you are helping that real estate agent, right? That's what most of us do in here. When you're helping that real estate agent get from point A to point B, and that real estate agent happens to be a D, you better do what you're going to say. Because if you don't, that person's going to cut you off, and you don't get any more business. And then you sit there and say, God, I wonder why they didn't like Triumviral. It wasn't they didn't like Triumviral, they didn't like you. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
So Darren,
Yes.
based on your experience of being a top recruiter and recruiting successful real estate agents, is there a characteristic that is more dominant amongst that group?
I'm really glad you asked that. When I sold real estate, I started in 2003. I went through 2009, my top year was 2008, we did 52 transactions, my team. It's a great year for us. Yes, back then, the high D profile led the market in real estate, followed by the I, and then followed by the SC profile together. That has significantly changed. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm glad you asked that question. Real estate agents now that I'm recruiting are very, very high in the S and the C category. And here's what I like about that particular profile. That particular profile builds businesses. Ds don't typically build a business, do they? We wing it. If you think I sat down and actually prepared this presentation, you gotta be nuts. Because I didn't. I've walked in, I've done this a few times. You can give me, back in high school, I was in speech and debate, as you can probably imagine, and my very favorite topic was impromptu speaking, right? For you high Ds in the area, we all know we can do that, right? We don't have any problem with that. But we don't build businesses, we wing it. And that's a problem we have. So we have to circle ourselves with people that build businesses. So the real estate agents now that are coming out into the marketplace that are very, very successful are those that build businesses. The high S profile, C profiles are amazing at building businesses because they get it done. The D's the visionary, the C's going to come behind you and get it done. We'll go through that, you'll see it in just a minute. Yes?
My partner is ISC.
That's correct. The ISC, we're going to get to what all these mean in a minute, but the ISC is actually disguises itself as a D. I'm going to say something to you here, and I don't want you to hold this against me. The ISC profile you also have to be careful of. Because what happens is when I get fired, because I did something wrong, there's going to be an ISC behind me, waving out the door, doing one of these. That was me. I got you. Now here's what I mean. This is a credit to you. This is not a complete bag. This is a credit to you. The ISC. Are you reading our emails? The ISC profile is one of the most strategic profiles that I've ever come across. Very strategic. Meaning that you put it in your mind, and your mind makes it happen. Deviant or not, it makes it happen. Right? So I want to rule the world. I want to rule the world.
And you hire a D to do it.
You hire the D to do it, and the C's to make sure you're doing it right. Okay? Good questions. How do we relate to a D? You communicate to the point. Okay? No emails that are 10 pages long. Bullet points. Okay? You ask what questions, not how questions. What's it going to take for you to sign the paperwork today? What's it going to take for us to get the class done today? Right? That's what the types of questions we ask. Avoid details. Respect the need for autonomy. What does that mean? Don't ask where I was last week. Did the job get done? Yes. Then let me be. Let them initiate, show your competence. I hate stupid people. For you high Ds in the room, I'm assuming the same. I hate stupid people. Don't act stupid. Stick to the topic, show independence, eliminate time wasters. Suggestions for Ds. Before you can be in authority, you must learn to be under authority. I have no idea what that means. And every time I teach this stupid thing, I wonder who in the hell put that. It's been ISC that put that. But quite frankly, I've tried to figure out what this means for me, and at the end of the day, the guy that actually owns the office, the guy that owns the office, I've come to learn to respect who he is and what he brings to the table. And if you can learn that as a D profile, what each person brings to the table, and that your ego is not that big, right? You're as ugly as all of us also, okay? If your ego's not that big, you're going to learn much quicker how to move and have success through other people than you are through yourself. And I guarantee you, if you learn that process quicker rather than slower, you're going to succeed much quicker at a much higher level. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you?
Amen.
You Ds?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you know if someone's a D? Let's get some characteristics. How do you know?
Aggressive,
Aggressive. How else?
assertive,
Assertive.
Body language.
confident.
Body language. Talk about body language.
An I person, not a we person.
An I person, not a we person. What
That
else?
part I kind of disagree with.
I knew you would.
No, because I think, with my background, I think all of us were Ds on my team, and I think that we all cared about each other, but we all knew what we were doing and the job would get done.
Good. Okay. I instead of we?
No, I don't necessarily like that.
Okay.
I'm married to a D, and it's not necessarily an I, it's, it's a we now. The we maybe just two, but it'll be a we, he puts that first, and then anybody else is, in choking.
So to your last slide, it goes to, you have to have a team.
Yeah, let me go backwards for just a minute. We're a D's, the highest weakness of a D, and here it goes, guys. The highest weakness of a D, where we're the most vulnerable, is we are pleasers. Extreme pleasers. And what I mean by that is, are you okay today? Is there something I can get for you? Can I get you a cup of coffee? Where would you like to go for lunch? I'm driving. I'll buy. Where do you want to go? You see what I'm doing? I'm giving this guy the world,
Just opening yourself up to take advantage.
which opens yourself up to manipulation and being taken advantage of. So the thing that we fear the most, we create our own self, don't we? Isn't that a funny thing? So speculating, looking at a high D profile, you got to be careful that you don't take advantage of them, right? How else can we visually see them when they're walking in the room? What do they do? What do they look like?
They tend to focus straight at you, they tend to carry themselves usually
Yeah.
short, they're usually clean cut, there's not hair everywhere, they tend to be constant. It's a constant same look, every time Dennis Jock walks through the door, he's gonna look the same. Every
Yeah.
time, Bob walks through the door, it's the exact same,
Right.
they're head to toe.
It's
The
fast.
closets are probably gonna be the same
It's-
colors, it's gonna be,
It's fast-paced. I'm going to hold you to something for just a minute here. It's fast-paced and it's focused. It's shiny, but it's not perfect. If it's perfect, that's the C profile. We're going to get to that in a minute. And it's very, very easily confused. But you better not confuse them because you'll end up in a clash and an argument that you never want to get into. And we'll go through that when we get to the C. Okay? How else can you see a D? Any other ways before we move on?
Confident,
Yep, usually. Because our mamas told us we were the greatest. Yes,
Eye contact, centered, they're direct, and they're to the point.
very much. Very much. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Any questions on the D? Let's move forward.
I want to change my letter now.
My wife's
Let's talk about the eyes. Okay, picture's worth 1,000 words. They're the cheerleader. 25% of the population makes up the eye category, and that's an important thing to know. Okay, they are amazing people. Whose eyes? Show me the eyes in the room. Yeah, all you shinies. What I like about the eye profile is this: you guys can spin about 10 plates. I can throw you an 11th plate, and you can spin it just fine. I can throw you a 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th plate, you're going to spin it just fine. Okay? With all due respect to the eyes, nothing's going to get done. Does that make sense? Because the focus is just not there.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
that's the wrong
don't
one.
think he's a B either, she was just saying,
Does that make sense, guys?
Right.
The eyes are going to be great people. They're going to be shiny people. They're going to be in front of you, being the best cheerleader in the whole world. But focus is going to be their number one issue. Okay? 25% of the population. You need to learn this because, as you saw in here, that happens to be the majority of the room, doesn't it? And that's typical when I walk in any room.
I take
They're-
out my eye, sorry.
They're inspiring, influencing, and by you saying that, you got to tell me that. I totally get it. Impressionable, interesting, impressive, involved, illogical, enthusiastic, trusting, short attention span, flashy, classy attire, and talkative. You're not wearing anything today. Clever. Here's how I can tell an eye when an eye walks in the room. They have something shiny on them. Right? Very shiny, little bling. So you have a very pretty watch there. Your toes are always did. Right? You want me to focus on something else other than something else. Does that make sense what I just said? You want me to focus on the shiny watch instead of your beautiful hair the way it's done today, or your beautiful face. Whatever that is, you want me to focus on that. Or if you're a guy, you want the girl to focus on it. Interesting, right? Illogical. Billy Joel. Who knows Billy Joel? She's always a woman to me. Right? Remember that song? That describes us almost perfectly. Short attention span. This was a big one. Okay, squirrel. And you can spell 11 things. And I can throw you the 12th, you're going to spend it just fine. But then all of a sudden the squirrel runs by, you drop all the plates because you want to see what happened over there. And that's awesome. Okay? And I wants to be liked. They like to express my ideas and my feelings about me. I like being in front of a group. I like surprises, fun, recognition, and people. Now, why is this important for you guys to know this part? Who's a D in here that's a manager? How many people do you have below you that are I's? I don't mean below you, that work with you in your group. How's that? I'm sorry. Lots. 25 to 35% are I's. What do they want? They want recognition. That makes sense? Taylor, you did a great job today. You look great. I like the way your hair looks today. That just brightens her day. Does that make sense? She's going to do 10 times for me today that she would have done if I would have ignored her and put my high D profile on and been focused. At the end of the month, what do I do in my office? Well, we have sales recognition awards every single month. And it drives me crazy and I hate doing it. Right? I hate standing there, oh look, top listing agent is blank. Great. Does that make sense?
I like the plaque more than I do the.
Right. Forget about the money. You don't need the money. Just give me the recognition. That's what you eyes like. And that's a great thing. So as a D profile or a C profile or an S profile, if you're looking at that eye profile, give what she wants. Because what you're going to get back is tenfold, as long as we do that. Working with realtors, in your particular case, that are high eyes, how do we find out if those people are high eyes? Okay, we're going to get to that. Keep thinking about that, because that's what you really want to focus on. Their weaknesses, they have no attention to detail. They listen when it's convenient. Some of you guys have already tuned me out. Oversell, acts impulsively, difficult to plan and estimate time. I'll be done at about 10:30. Come 11 o'clock, you're going to roll in. More concerned with popularity than tangible results. How does that sound, Scott? Does that sound like you?
No, I'm not seeing.
Are you?
But I see a lot of that in me though.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, not the popular thing, because I love the things like I'm not big on social. I don't like the big crowds, and I don't care less about parties and stuff like that. So
Sure.
that's not me.
Okay.
But there are things in there like see, definitely the plaque.
For you eyes in the room,
recognition.
let's see it. See hands again? Where does this fit with you? I love this.
I think I need to retake the
I
test, because a
love
lot of
this.
those things, I'm not that. I don't care about flash, I don't care about the glitz and I'm so not like that.
You're so like that.
I am not. I wear a bun, I don't wear makeup, I don't wear jewelry.
Whose did you copy?
Isn't that where the second?
Second letter.
Careful.
Yeah.
The second letter, one
Comes into
of
play.
them's pushing the other one. We'll go through that in a minute. Here's the funny thing, guys. This is the funniest thing. I've taught this a few times, let's put it to you that way. And it never fails. I don't know if I need to change the order to which this goes or not. But for some reason, the eyes are always going to tell me that's not me. And I always wait for it. And inevitably, it happens. I had this one gal that literally got up and went to the bathroom and took off all her jewelry and then came back and said, see, I'm not shining. Well, okay. Something along the lines will still come out and say that. And the fact that you actually spoke up and said that is high profile. Because the eyes are going to talk. They're the socialites. They want to know. Does that make sense? And you said to me that it wasn't an argumentative. You said, maybe I should retake this. The C profiles are going to say, that's not me, this is wrong. Does that make sense? You see the difference? So it's the verbiage that we use, not only the dress that we have, not only the sheen that we present, but it's the verbiage that we're using a lot of times, and the way it's delivered will dictate to you who you're talking to, right? She never would have told me, you're wrong. She immediately brought it upon herself that she might be wrong. Does that make sense? Okay.
How would the D respond?
The D respond and say, that's exactly what I am.
Yeah.
That's it.
Like,
You think this just happens? Wow, can't believe I let that one. I'm being taped.
35 years of perfection.
Yes, yes. I's greatest fear is rejection. Okay? Don't reject an I. How do you reject an I? Lots of different ways.
Almost lovingly.
Okay? The most important thing about an I is you want to make sure that they realize that they are important. They're important to the success of your team. They're important to the success of life, etc., etc. Right? Validation. Thank you. It's a great word. Okay? You can kill an I profile just like that. So who are the I's in here? You guys still raise your hands high. I love that. You absolutely do. Because they want to be seen. Okay? What kind of rejection?
Can you really hear Joey going?
Yeah. What kind of rejection? How do you reject an I? Let's talk about that. Let's talk. This is important.
Your jewelry looks too much there. You got too much.
You can personally attack them. Yes, you can personally attack them.
Maybe you can just walk by.
By not acknowledging them, guys, thank you, that's exactly what I was looking for. By not simply acknowledging them will hurt them. So when you have a high D profile or a C profile, okay, sorry. When you have those profiles and they walk by an I person, you didn't say hi to me. Do I stink? I better go to the bathroom with my makeup. I better do this. Because I didn't acknowledge them. So it's not about rejecting them, saying, you're ugly. You're not. It's not about that. It's about just ignoring them. And for you guys that are managers in here, that might be the biggest tidbit you guys get today, is always have that smile. I don't care what profile you have. It's always a smile. How you doing today? You look great. I can't wait to get the business. Let's go. It's much better than, let's go to work. You ready? Doesn't do it.
I'm sorry
yeah, I
that
shouldn't
Steve walked straight by you. We didn't acknowledge you for so many days.
How to relate to an I. Be relaxed and sociable. Let them talk. Oh my God.
That's awesome.
It's painful for me.
Ever watch Dumb and Dumber? Or not Dumb and Dumber. Dude, Where's My Car?
Yes.
There was a little Chinese lady on the, and then,
And
and then, you guys remember that? Okay, that's it. Just be quiet. And then, just keep doing it. Keep the conversation light. And then I went to the mall. It was great. I got to do this. And then my boyfriend took me there. And I took my girlfriend there. Suggest what action they should take. You know, it might be better if we did this together. Don't dictate it to them. Provide details in writing, but don't dwell on them. Provide incentive for them to take on a task. Give them public recognition. Use humor. Freedom from control and detail. Ask who. Who's going to be at the party? Not what's it going to take for us to get to the party, right? Who's going to be at the party? Who's going to be at your open house this weekend? What are you doing this weekend with your friends? Right? It's all about the who, the party. Freedom from control. Use stories about others to convince them to help and help them please others. Use stories about others. Biggest recruiting tool I've ever used in an iProfile is, you know something? When Scott came to my office and he first started with me 6 months ago, he had done 1 transaction. And then when he met me and we got into business together, he did 15 last year. Do you see that? I'm using who. Now, as a D profile, if I'm going to recruit that person, it's about what, correct? So I'm going to say, Christy, how many transactions do you have in escrow right now? 12. Great. So what's it going to take to bring those over? You see the difference in the question? The D's, it stimulates the what, and the I's is going to stimulate when I'm talking about who. Okay. Suggestion for I's, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. What does that mean? Come on, women. What does that mean?
You don't have to step on people to get ahead.
You don't have to step on people to get ahead. Okay? The I's biggest piece that they will do is they will maneuver their way to get ahead. In a corporate environment, I'm not talking about a social environment, but a corporate environment will figure out a way to get ahead, and sometimes it's mean. Okay? Difference between an I and a D? Big, right? They're like night and day. Okay, questions so far? You guys happy with yourselves or not? You're okay with it?
I'm okay, I know who I am.
Okay.
Should we worry, Darren, about a level high DI? Is
They're
that
identical?
identical?
There are those people?
Just peek at this. Can you
That's
see it?
not. Oh, you're talking about the middle right there? Interesting.
Do you know who this is?
This, I don't know.
It's
She's gonna
Is
use
it
it against
It's
him.
Steve. It's
Yeah.
kind of frightening in a way.
He can go, he's gonna be more D. I'm sorry. He's gonna be more I than he is D. And I would say that his other 2 graphs are that way. Is that correct? It goes like this?
Way up, yeah.
Yeah. So, Steve wants to get the job done, but he's gonna have a big party on his way to get the job done.
That's Steve.
That's who he is. Okay, his focus is gonna be off.
Amen.
Yeah.
His focus is gonna be off, and he's gonna, you have to corral him just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a hair. All right.
Oh, my life.
Don't give him any sharp objects.
No.
And we're being taped, this is good. Okay, how do you guys know if you're an I? How do you know? How do you know if you're looking at an I person? How do you know?
You're chasing the squirrel.
Chasing the squirrel, how else? I in the back of the room, right? No, what's your profile?
The I, but they're pretty close to the same.
Okay, how do I know that? Because right away you held up your piece of paper. Look at me, look at me.
No, I said I meant by look at the graph. That's how I know.
How else do we know? But hold on, by you doing that, displayed your I profile. Does that make sense? You might just come through and knock that glass of water right over. There's an I person. It's not because they're clumsy, it's a way of being recognized. That's the worst case scenario, okay? How else do you recognize an I profile?
Very friendly and sociable.
Very friendly and sociable. How else?
Love to talk.
Love to talk. Let them talk. Sign of rejection is when you say, you know what, can you hold on to that thought for just a minute? Or God forbid, what time is it? The minute I do that, it's going to turn off 2 profiles in here. It's going to turn off an S profile, it's going to turn off an I profile. It's because they want to be heard. And let them talk. A lot of real estate agents are in that I profile. Most people in the world are that I profile. Still, we're changing, I believe. And we'll get to why we are in just a minute. Okay, any questions on the I? Okay, let's move forward. Give me an S.
We're kind of close to IS. I mean, it's like almost,
You're still on.
okay.
Okay, whatever the top dog is, that's what you're gonna lead with. And the back is what's pushing it. And we're gonna talk about that in a minute here. We'll wrap it all up. So let's look at who's an S. Anybody have an S profile?
What, for Scott? That's for Scott.
Does it ISC?
Nope, nope, just the top one.
Oh,
Top one.
yes.
Okay, top one, so there's 3 of you in here. Okay, interesting. That's changing. Obviously, remember, we're in this particular type of arena, but if you went out there and talked to most of those people, they're gonna have a lot of I's, a lot of S's, and some C's, okay? And S is one of the smartest people I've ever run across, are S profiles. They're very, very slow to react to things. And so you think that they're not very smart. You look at them and go, that Scott ain't that smart. But the reason why he's acting that way is because he's not going to jump into the fire from the fry pan. He may take a few minutes and sizzle on that fry pan before he jumps, but before he jumps, he's going to make sure it's the right thing to do. Okay? So don't ever be fooled by that profile. I have before, and it's cost me. Okay? When you see this, it's an equal scale here. They're very, very even-keeled people. They don't get excited, they don't get depressed. They don't get excited, they don't get depressed. They're just
Scott
kind
gets
of.
excited.
Yeah.
What's your other letter?
See.
Did I cheat? He was asking me the answers.
That's what I thought. No. I think I can prove this still. So the S is going to be someone that's more even-keeled. What they are resistant to is change. Okay? And I'll talk about how that works in just a minute. Okay, picture's worth 1,000 words, right? You've got all the colors there, you've got everybody's just equal-handed. Okay? 30 to 35% of the population and growing. General characteristics are supportive, stable, steady, sweet, status quo, put a mark next to status quo. Shy, can't say no, put another mark next to that. Good listeners, team players, possessive, understanding, friendly, and predictable. Where an S gets in trouble is they can't say no, and they end up taking on way too many things.
There we go, you nailed it.
There it is.
Yes.
There's the
I was worried.
Okay.
I can't say no, and therefore I'm not going to get anything done. He looks like an I, right? But he's not. Because I's can say no, can't they? Okay, you guys starting to see a little difference here in these profiles? Status quo, what's status quo mean? Everything remains the exact same way it is today. Nothing changes. Okay, Scott probably takes the same ride home every day. Rarely does he change his anything. Routine, thank you.
That's why I love the shirts.
Right. How do you probably had Grandma's when he was little. You know? He asked the
Grandma's?
Yeah.
You're on the mermaid.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the cool thing about this is there's actually a few. This is one of my favorite profiles. And it's because I wish I was more like it. Remember I told you at the beginning that usually it works out really well when you want to be like somebody. I wish I was a better team player. Right? I wish I liked things more status quo. I wish I was a better listener. Who wishes they were a better listener? Isn't that a great profile to have? Now, when you read this, though, understand that they don't like anything else that's not like that. So let me clarify this. Status quo or good listener. How do you lose it with an S? Well, if they're a good listener, don't they want you to be a good listener? And so when they're talking, shouldn't you keep your mouth shut? Shouldn't you let them get it all out before you interrupt them? So when Scott's talking, he's thought long and hard about what he's going to have to say. He might be I'm just kidding. I was going to do someone really bad with their Scott. I'm sorry. I was going to say maybe he wasn't smart to figure out fast enough, but no. Scott is when he thinks long and hard about it, he wants to make sure that what comes out of his mouth can fit everybody in the room, that it's going to appeal to everybody in the room. And therefore, when he says it, he wants to be heard. Does that make sense? So you need to keep your mouth shut when they're talking. Now, you notice there's not that many S's in this particular room. This profile, along with the next one, the C, is growing very, very much in this country. Okay? And we get through this, I'm going to explain why, but I want you guys to think about that in the back of your head so you guys can tell me why. They're friendly and predictable. They like to be accepted. They like teamwork. They like sticking to what works. Again, that status quo thing. They like harmony. They like things to stay the same. They like routine. Okay. In Keller Williams, we have two different, we have leadership teams, right? We have a team leader, which is myself. You have the next one down, which is an MCA, and she is really the manager of the office. And it stands for Market Center Administrator. She's a high S profile. So I'm a high D, she's a high S profile. This year, we had to grow, exponentially. We had to move into a brand new building. There was a lot of the Delta sign, a lot of change in her world. How did I help her to understand that we had to change? This is going to go deep here, but I want you to think about this for a second. How do you convince a Scot to change? Yes, you do. There's an absolute way of doing it.
The benefits. Benefits of the change.
Benefits that change. That's going to be for a D.
By making it part of the team, like, we're doing this change together.
We're doing the change together. I like that. Think about what I had to do. Heather's her name. Heather, we need to grow to 150, which means we have to grow somewhere around 60 to 70 people this year. The market center's not going to look the same, right? When you start out with 20 people and it changes to 60 people, your market center doesn't look the same anymore. Your office. What else? And we need to move into a brand new building. And by the way, my vision for this building, and Christy has seen the building, a couple of you have seen Scott, Bob. My vision for the building, she hit the nail on the head. I want you to walk into the office and not realize you're in Norco, California. I want to think that you might have been even in New York or where else. So you look at my office, I don't have a desk, I have a table in my office, things like that. Okay? How do you do that? This is important because I want you guys to figure out, when we're done with this, how we make each person move. In S, you have to convince them that the status quo is in the change. In other words, we're going to be changing all the time. That's the new status quo. Do you get that?
You
No,
have to be with them every step of the way.
And we're going to hold your hand all the way through this.
Harmony,
Does that make sense? That's what this class is for, is to think about how we make the other person in front of me move. So that if I'm working on a refi, I can get him to pull the trigger 10 times faster, which means I can move to the next client. Or if you're a D, I can move to the next victim. Or if I'm an I, I can move to the next friend. You guys get this? And that's what's important about it. That's why I think this is so important. I don't have time, if I'm recruiting 143, 150 people a year, to sit there and hold their hand like a small child. I have to get in, understand them, help them figure out where the move is, and then move them. So now the change is, for her, was we're going to make this change, and you're going to be in a constant state of change. That's the new status quo for you. Now, where's the downfall of that? I can't get her to stop. Now she's ready to change jobs, she's ready to change career. You get my point? So now you have to reverse that. Okay? Everybody with me on this? Okay.
Is giving them the vision of the future important? And is it bite-sized? You have to give it
It's
all at once?
I do another class, which I'll do for you guys too. It's a mission, developing your own mission statement. And the D is always the visionary. Which one of you guys with the DS? You? Okay. You're the visionary, is what that means. I can see this, and this. Strategic boy guy back here is going to put the plan into action. Yours was an IC profile?
Yes.
IS profile, fantastic. The IS profile is going to keep everybody in the same page and talking about the vision and talking about how great it is that we're doing this. It's actually a pretty good threesome right there. Very interesting. Does that make sense? You've got to keep the vision in front of them. It's like a carrot. There's the carrot. We're going to go after it. The eye is going to say, look guys, we made it to this level. We're almost there. And right before you get there, because he's planned it this way, you make another change. Wait a minute, we don't only want 300 offices, we want 350 offices. Okay, we can do this. We just got here at 150. We're going to get to 300 in 2 years. He's sharpening his pencil back there, figuring out how you're going to get to that process. Do you see how the threesome's going to work? So yeah, you've got to keep in front of them. Okay?
He didn't do it, this guy.
The S profile has trouble sharing their feelings. Okay? But man, when they start, but I will tell you this, when they trust you enough, look out. Then they love you forever. Right?
He
Love you, man.
He texted me that on weekend.
I love you, man.
Smiley faces and thumbs up.
Yes.
Emoticons. I know. I like
Sure.
emos.
Difficulty establishing priorities. So if you have an S profile on your team, you need to give them a list, and an I also. You need to give them a list of what you want first, second, and third. Heather, your first priority is signing in new agents when I sign them. The building will come. We'll fix the building when that time comes. Does that make sense? This is your first priority, your second priority, your third, your fourth.
You said for I also.
For I's are the same. Okay? The other part is you need to set time limits with S's as well as with I's. Okay? So I need to have this paperwork done by next week at 3 o'clock. Or else I won't like you anymore, if you're an I, right? Or an S, if I don't get this paperwork by 3 o'clock, we're going to do it all over again, and the shit's going to hit the fan, we're going to have all these changes. I want changes. I want to be good. Okay, great. You see how we're moving you along? This is how we're moving you along. A D, I hope it gets done. Because if it doesn't get done, there's going to be all kinds of trouble. In fact, you're going to lose the rate lock, you're going to lose this, and this. And in fact, I might take advantage of you if you don't get it done on time. That's what we're conveying to them. Okay? What's the greatest fear of S? Loss of security. Does a bonus work for high S's? Or does a paycheck work for high S's? What's more excitable? A paycheck. Consistency. I make 10 grand a month. I had a $50,000 bonus, but I don't care. I made 10 grand that month. That's my payroll. Okay. How to relate to an S. Be friendly and supportive. Ask how, not what questions. Well, we're going to talk about logistics. So how are we going to get the paperwork to you to sign it today? Right? How is that going to look, Scott, when you are the #1 salesman in the world? How is that going to look when we do this? How are we going to get all the flyers out today? Right? When you're talking to a real estate agent and they're a high S, how can I help you grow your business to the highest level? You guys get that? Use evidence of benefits to convince. Give details. Use evidence of benefits to convince. What did I do today when I first started this class? My name is Darren Kirkland. I was #1 team leader in 2010. I recruited 143 agents. Right? I appealed to the high D's, didn't I? Oh, you guys got some success behind it. I appealed to the S, didn't I? I gave you a benefit as to why you're taking this class. And how do I appeal to the I's? Immediately I launched into something funny. And everybody went, oh. So every one of you guys were just... It's immediate that you have to talk. You want to attach to every single person. Okay? Never, 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 never change your environment without asking. Scott, we moved your desk and we moved it out towards the bathroom because you go in there quite a bit. We just want to make it more efficient for you. He would hate that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But as a team, Scott, we want to go ahead and move more for efficiency so that you can do not only the business you're doing, but it might even do a little bit better, but certainly keep the business you're doing today. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. We want to increase your pay today by $500 for the month. And that's just your flat pay. We're not going to touch your bonus because you're doing so great. Exciting. Suggestions for an S, don't be afraid to say what part of no don't you understand. No, you don't get all of this. Okay? Right? I'm sorry, I can't do 15 loans in one day. Right? Mr. Real Estate Agent, you retard, I can't do that today. Right? Whatever that story is, you have to draw the line in the sand. And the faster you draw the line in the sand, the more productive you'll be. And don't worry, no one's going to not like you. We're all going to love you still. Okay? How do we know if you're an S? Is there any specific way that you dress? Is there any specific, yeah, very consistent. Heather wears pants and a button shirt every day, doesn't she? S's will wear the same type of clothes, maybe not the same exact clothing, but they'll wear the same type of ensemble every single day. That's one way. How else?
Same time in the morning, same time at night.
Yeah. I have to leave by 4 o'clock. I have to do this by this time.
I need a nap by 3.
I need a nap by 3. Let's go get a Starbucks at 3:30. It's very, very much clockwork. Okay? I'm going to tell you this too, USs. You're the most pleasant people to be around. More so than
There's
I.
only 3 of us in the
And
room.
there's only 3 of you guys in the room, so you guys are taking me to lunch, right? You three? You're the most pleasant to be
I
around
don't know,
all
he
the
said
time.
3. Me,
Okay.
Scott, and who else?
Right here.
Oh. Okay.
You're the most. You're very, very easygoing people. Not a whole lot's going to wrinkle your feathers, ruffle your feathers, I should say. Okay. Questions on the S? Questions? No. Okay. The C's. Who are the C's in here? Raise your hands. You bet. Who leads with the C? This gentleman for sure. How else? Who else? Yep, he leads with the C. How else? Who else? Okay.
That's the last of my brain.
Yeah.
This way to eat with.
Picture's worth 1,000 words. It's my way or the highway, is what that says. It's a one-way sign. 20 to 25% of the population. Get to know these people. Get to know these people. The world is changing more and more to the SC profiles. If you don't believe me, who has kids between the ages of 7 and 14? Who watches the TV shows that those kids watch? Well, you should start watching. Because the way they talk to each other in those TV shows is the way an SC or CS profile talks to the rest of the world. And with all due respect to the C's in here, you need to learn to bend just a little bit. You'll make it further in this world. Okay? That population change is happening right before your eyes. They've taken away, if you think about capitalism the way it looks today, the more capitalism they take away, the more D's are going to hide. Does that make sense? And the more compliant people we put into the population, the higher C profile we have. He has a head start. Because it's put in front of him, he's going to do it. Does that make sense?
If you have a show of hands of who was,
1 person in the room, 2 people, 3 people in the room.
The compliance officer, what a coincidence.
Compliance officer, absolutely.
He's a high C.
He's a high C.
He's a high C.
He's a C. He's a CD.
He's a CD.
I do.
So it's his way, and he's going to be very forceful that it's his way. Sorry.
Just seeing his iron on?
Okay. You're also going to be dressed a certain way. Your hair is very much in place, your shirt is tucked in, His hair is very much in place. I'm surprised he has a beard, except the beard is trimmed very, very nicely and precisely.
Wanted
And
by
it's
the
always-
FBI.
Are there any girls in here that are C's? It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
A female, and maybe the males in this particular case too, will change clothes 3 or 4 times before they pick the right outfit that they want to go out in. So I may not like the shirt, the socks, the shoes. I might change the shoes. You get my point?
Yeah.
And that happens to you every once in a while, and that's okay. Okay. C's are cautious, calculating, competent, cognitive, contemplative, careful, cold, perfectionist, dressed the same, and they're accurate. Any of those not fit you?
What's that picture? Is that my liver? We got an
How did you even get that?
Does this work on our children? Like,
Yeah.
our children, their 14,
So-
15-year-old brains develop
does.
enough to take tests? Because
My-
I really need to know.
I have one, my 13-year-old is a high D profile like me. She's a softball pitcher, right? On the mound, every play, that person. My 11-year-old is a high C profile. She is going to be a chef. And think about this for a minute. A chef, like an engineer, has to have things just so, or the souffle doesn't rise. Does that make sense? If their engineer is not here at the C profile to make sure the calculations are correct, this building's gonna freaking fall down. So every profile is needed, and that starts at a very early age, and it's usually a combination of who you are and who your husband is, or who you are and who their father was. Right? Okay. Dress the same, accurate. What does the C want? They want to be, in fact, they like to be right. They want to know what's expected of the job before they start the job. Give them all the details, from A to Z. I can't give this gentleman, I'm sorry, what's your name? Tom. I can't give Tom a halfway project. He won't start it until he has directions 1 through 10. And those are the only directions he's going to have. A phenomenal negotiator, because they wait for all of it. Real estate agent comes to my office. Well, I'd like to have a 90-10 split. What's a D do? Okay, great, sign there. And I'd like to have $100 worth of signs. Okay, great, sign that. And I'd like to have a corner office. Does that make sense? C's will wait there. And what else would you like? And what else would you like? And what else would you like? Does that make sense? So when you're working in a relationship with C, as an example, and they're going to have their house refinanced, make sure you come completely prepared. You cannot wing it with them. It will drive them crazy. One of the things I blew with the C's today is I didn't tell you what time this class was going to start and what time it was going to end. He wants to know what time it's going to start and what time it's going to end. And he wants to hold me to that. Okay?
Wait.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what is expected. I can't read the next one.
I like to establish a clear path. I want an established path.
Very good.
Okay? I want to walk this path established. I'm not going to go out into the wilderness and go hunting today. That's not what a C does. They walk the path. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. A D can't stay on a path, a C is going to walk the path. Big difference, right? And I is just going to bird watch.
Squirrel.
Right? And the S is saying, wait for me. Wait for me. Let me hold your hand.
Yeah.
Okay? They like to organize things. That's one of the biggest ways we can tell a C. I'll bet your desk is very clean.
To me it is.
I'll bet she's going to go and reorganize it the minute this is. Okay? Yours is probably neat and clean. Your car is probably neat and clean.
Absolutely.
Okay? Weaknesses. Needs clear, but cut boundaries. Okay? Gets bogged down in the details. Well, I've got a system I'm creating, and it's almost done. I need to just tweak it a little more. If you heard the word tweak, it's probably a C profile. I just need to tweak my system a little bit more. And why? Because it's never perfect. They're perfectionists, but it's never perfect what they're going to display to you. So how do you get them to move? You need to set clear boundaries for how long they have to work on the project, what the project's going to look like when it's done, and then you move forward with it. Okay? They give in rather than argue. That is a mistake. I need to change that, I'm sorry. So here's the thing about the difference between C's and D's, okay? Because they're very, very close. If you look at this gentleman and I, if I had beautiful hair like his, we'd be very close in what we look like. Is that not physical features, but we're both clean shaven to a degree. Okay, so it can be very easily mistaken, the C and the D. I will yield to somebody's thoughts. If Taylor comes into my office, she says, I really like the Triangle Group sign. But what if we did it in a light blue? I'd be like, great, put it on paper, let's see what it looks like. Tom would say, no, that's the sign, that's the way it was created. Does that make sense? Big difference. If Christy walked into my office and said, and I'm a pilot, and she says to me, well, go ahead and drop the bombs here, it looks good. A D would be like, yeah, let them crash. He would let it go. Tom would say no, because we're not over the exact spot, and I don't want to kill innocent people. Does that make sense? The minute someone gets up to argue their point, that's when you know that C is rising up in somebody. D's don't argue. It's just my way. Right? I don't care how, I'm sorry, excuse me. D is, they don't argue. I just want to get it done. The C is going to argue. It's going to get done. It's going to get done my way. Does that make sense? Okay. Black and white, there's no gray. Cops make amazing C profiles. Engineers, amazing C profiles. Right? Anything that's precise. You don't want a cop out there, well, I think she was speeding, but she's hot, and so we're going to let it go. No, she was speeding. Give her the ticket. Make sense? Greatest fear is criticism. Greatest fear is criticism. With all due respect, they're the highest at criticizing. Isn't that funny? So what happens is when if you have a C profile as an example that you're married to, if this would make sense, there's going to want to be change, because nothing's ever perfect. So they're going to want to make a change on a constant basis, and depending on what profile you are, it might drive you freaking nuts. If you're an I profile, it goes really great with the C profile, doesn't it? Because the C really wants to just rip his shirt off and just let it all go. And the I's already there. And the I is always saying, God, I wish I had more structure in my life. I wish that I could just get this done. I can't seem to get anything done today. Oh my God, it's 5 o'clock and I haven't begun to take my lunch yet. You see how those two would mesh? A DC profile, what is that going to look like? Be prepared when you're talking with a C. If you're going in, no, you guys are agents, if you're going to list a property, you want to have everything prepared. If you're going to talk to a client that's signing paperwork and all the documents aren't there on the loan, God help you if you're working with a C. You might even lose the loan. Does that make sense? If you're dealing with a high C that's a real estate agent, have everything set. Have all of your wares, if you want to try to capture them, have all of your wares ready to go. This is what I provide. A nice pamphlet, booklet with 10 or 11 things in it. And they're going to ask you questions. How do you do this? Why would I do it this way? Why would I use you, Bob, as my mortgage guy? Why? Tell me why. They have to be compelled on a constant basis. Okay? Don't surprise them. If agreeing, be specific. Okay, I'll sign you today at an 80-20. Is there anything else that you want? Yes, I want this. Great. Is there anything else you want? Is there anything else? Be specific with that contract that you're going to write with them. Clear expectations. Okay, you ask why, not what questions. That's a big difference. So Tom, I'm going to tell you why that you're going to come to the class today. The reason why you're here is you're going to learn this, 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 and this. And then at the end, you ask them again, Tom, did you learn this, 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 and this? Sold. Done. Okay? Bob, what you're going to get today is we're going to get a clear package for your new loan. And I can't wait to provide that for you. And in your package is going to be the letter A, B, C, and D, and F. Do you have any questions on those? And you shut up and listen. No? Fantastic. So I expect you to sign this, 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 and this, and I expect you to be back in my office by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Is there any questions with that? No. Boom. Sold. Right? That's what he wants. It's not, we're going to get to 350 offices somehow. It's going to be great when we get there someday. That's going to drive him nuts. Right? Okay. Suggestions for C's. People don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. Okay? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
See, we don't think that you care about us. Here's the greatest thing. The C's actually care about you more than anybody else. Don't be crazy. They have such a high expectation for you that they want you to be perfect. They just have a hard time showing you that. And so they want to make changes to you on a constant basis because they're trying to make you perfect. Does that make sense? And it's a great thing. It's a great thing, but you got to realize where he's coming from when he steps up and makes an argument with you. It's actually coming from a place that he's trying to help you. And that's the biggest misconception of people. Okay? On the C side. Okay. Take a look at these. So a D, our relationship style and our activity style. On a D, our relationship is outgoing. We're going to be talkative. How you doing? Very, very short amount of time, but we're going to give you that time. And we are very much task-oriented. Let's just get it done. Okay? If we're an I, we're outgoing and we're people-oriented. That's our activities. So we're going to be around a bunch of people all the time. Either at social events, parties, door knocking if we're real estate agents. Okay? Teamwork. We like it. If we're S, we're very reserved. So I'm not going to have a lot of relationships. The relationships I'm going to have are going to be very deep. And they, again, are going to be people. They're warm. They're going to be people-oriented. If I'm a C, my relationship style is going to be very, very reserved. I'm not going to have a lot of relationships, but the relationships I have are going to be pretty good. And they're task-oriented. Let's just get it done. I'll do it myself. We'll do it as a team. I don't need anybody else around. Make sense? All right. So now what do we do? Well, you guys have learned who you are. And I think we're pretty accurate. Would you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
To a certain extent. I mean, you can't categorize the whole world before.
Oh, you can.
I have a question.
All right.
I have a question though.
Yes,
How- This is
very
broken
good
down
stuff.
into 3 grids, and the
Yeah.
last one says it's the mirror your perceived self, and so it's like exactly between 2. But when you look at mass public self and private self, how can they be different if you get to the last thing and it says difference and they're exactly the same? How is that scored?
So, okay, so you've got your first 2 categories, and I want to look at those for a minute. You have your public self and you have your core self.
Yeah.
The reason why I focus on one graph only is because it's the graph that's going to be when you're under the most pressure, when you're under the most duress. The other two graphs, they don't dictate your true self. So your masked self, or your public self, in other words, would be like, oh, I want people to think of me this way.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
at least for me particularly, this last one that says mirror, perceived self, I mean, this should be the combination of both of those, right?
No,
No?
no, your perceived self is the way you want to think of yourself,
Well,
but you may not be
perceived
that
self,
way.
private self, okay. Shouldn't those be the same? No?
No,
How I perceive myself isn't really how I am? No?
no,
That's not what that is.
absolutely not.
Okay,
You could be something completely different than you think you are.
really?
So Pam, what was your profile?
I was an IS.
I have that. Yes, you were.
That's a good question. Does everybody realize that? You know, I may want to be one specific way, but that's not the way the world sees me.
Or I think I'm this
Or I
way.
think I'm that way.
This is actually how other people perceive me.
This is actually the way other people perceive me, or this is actually the way I truly am. Okay?
You mentioned there was the primary and then the second, and then the.
Okay, so just a few more minutes, guys, and we'll be wrap this up. There's a primary and a secondary. So your primary is your top category. So in this particular case, this gentleman, Garrick, is he's a DC profile. Actually, he's a CD profile. So he leads with his C and he follows with his D. What does that mean? What does that mean? He leads with his C, which means he's going to be everything like that he is in the C. He's going to be compliant, right? What else is he going to be? He's going to be correct, competitive, argumentative, right? And the D is what's following that. The D is what's pushing that along. So it's more important for him to be correct, but it's also important for him to be the number one guy. Because that's what a D is, they're competitive and the dominant guy. If it was the other way around, he would be more concerned about being dominant than it would be about being correct. Okay? So I have what they call a DI profile. I am very, 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 very direct, forceful, get the job done, what's it going to take? But there are times I can sit in a social and just smile, and everything's great. How are you today? How is everything with you? Isn't it wonderful to be here with all of you? Does that make sense? But inside, it wears on me a little bit. I can't do it very long. But I have just enough to make those smiles. Okay? All right, questions? Yes?
How would you, let's just say mine are pretty much all the three across the board.
Yep.
So
Very accurate.
at public, private, and
Yes.
my perceived self are very similar all the way
Yes.
across. So are you guys seeing?
Not everybody has that. Not everybody has that. Some people are different than they appear, and that's okay. Some of you have all three of your graphs are very different.
What does that mean?
And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, English may not be your first, English may not be your first language. Very possible. If English is not your first language, the words mean different things in different languages. And so you can have three different graphs.
But then
The other, it doesn't nullify it, it just, I'll give you another type thing. The other part of that is if your graph, if there's three different graphs, you also could be going through a change in your life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you could be going through a divorce. You could be going through a physical change. You could be going through a mental change. It could be different seasons of your life, right?
The crisis.
A crisis could be developing or could have developed or you've just gone through one. And that's okay too. Don't freak out. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not like we gotta, hook you up to some machines and save your life. It's just that's where you're at in your life right now. And it may not be a perfect time to take this until we're finished with our life process. Does that make sense? The other part of it is this, you guys. These can change to a degree. As long as you're true to yourself, it will remain the same. Does that make sense? So, when I started this, I told you everybody is their own profile, and that's great. We don't want to make changes to our profile. But if you sit there and say, well, God, I really wish I was a D, or I really wish I was an I, you want to start gravitating that way. And what's going to happen is you're going to start changing these graphs a little bit. And when you change these graphs a little bit, it's not going to be true. And you'll get a little tired doing what you're not supposed to be doing. Does that make sense to everybody?
At that point, you probably have 3 different graphs.
At that point, you might have 3 different graphs. Okay?
One
Yes, sir.
question about having 3 letters.
Yes.
If you're gonna go-
So the 3 letters, that's an interesting phenomenon. The only 3 letters that, mean something in here are going to be, number 1, an ISC, and which I think one of you guys was an ISC, right?
I'm an ISC.
Okay. You're also an ISC? No. Who else has 3 letters up above that? Actually, 3 of you. Okay. The 3 letters just mean you're very well-rounded, in the sense that you can bring any one of those characteristics up at any one time. Your dominant one is still going to be who you truly are, but you have that ability to bring the other letters up. Okay? So the DIC, you can be forceful, sorry, no pun. You can be friendly, or you can be compliant when you need to be. Okay? The ISC is the only combination I've ever seen that actually masks itself as a completely different personality. So you mask yourself as a D. When people look at you, they think that, oh, he's very dominant, direct, driving, right? And realistically, you're not. It's really interesting characteristic. I've only seen that a couple
So
times.
he's ISC,
Uh-huh.
I'm ICS.
Not the same.
How is it, but what, yes, just because the two,
It's
I mean,
just-
they're
it's-
close,
They're
but
close, but it's just the way the combination of letters works. It's the way the combination of the mind
just like
works.
the 3 same letters are like.
But think about this for a minute. So an ISC, what's their second most important thing that they want in their life?
Stability.
Stability. Does a C care about stability? No. So the ISC is going to drive out there. Look at me, look at me. The S profile that's behind it really wants it steady. And then the C profile is the compliant side.
Yeah.
Different than, look at me, I'm right, because look at me, and then I want steady. Do you see the difference? Very different. The reason why that ISC comes through, the compliant, the C part, actually comes through and beats both the S and the I. It's just practice. Very rare, don't worry about it. You're going to come across it once in 40 people. That's the way it works. It's very rare. Okay. All right, questions for me?
So Darren, if you could speak to why this tool helps,
I appreciate
helps us
it.
all get along.
Okay, excellent. We found in Keller Williams that each person has strengths. And if you have specific strengths, and I'm assuming these are broken apart in teams, but am I fair to say that? That each person in here is on a team?
Well, and they play different roles in
That's
those
right.
teams.
That's
You have
right.
operations, you have sales.
That's right. That's right.
And within each one of those, you have different
What-
subcategories.
What this is the prelude to, in my opinion, is to find out which team is operating at a higher level, and then look at the profiles of each member on that team. We did that at Keller Williams, and we found out that a team leader has a high D and some I profile. The MCA has a high I and a C profile, and that the transaction coordinator has a high C profile. Okay? And then we tweaked it. We found the team leader has a high D profile. We found the MCA, which is the Market Center Administrator, the accountant, needs to have some of that S in there for the steadiness. You see, I'm the dad, so I go through and spank everybody when they've been a bad boy, right? And then they go into Heather's office and she gives them hugs like mom. It's important that you have those two, correct? If you have a high D profile that gives them a spank, and the high C in the next office going like, you shouldn't have done that, they feel unloved and they leave. So what I want you to be able to do is to look at your teams here And this by no means is a way to get people fired and all that stuff, so everybody relax, you ISs. Scott, you're gonna be okay.
I'll make it.
But what this does is it creates, in my opinion, an atmosphere where people, A, don't call in sick, they work very hard. I don't take vacations because my vacation is my job. And I enjoy doing it so much that I find pleasure in it. I think if you guys do that with your teams here, you're going to find out that the team leader should look like this, your compliance person should look like this, your what do you call this? Liaisons should look like this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you're going to find out very, very highly charged teams at that point. That's what I would look at. The reason why I'm here doing this is I think Steve saw a kind of a cool idea here. And this is what I always tell people. My real estate agents will work, everybody says, well, I don't want to work with buyers. Buyers are liars, right? We've all heard those stories. But here's the thing that I found when I was working with buyers and when I worked with listings, etc. What I found out is if I walked into a room and I was able to dictate who each person was quicker, I could A, turn it faster, turn the deal faster, make more money, right? And become much more efficient at my task. That's why I did it. And I think Steve saw that and whatever. I applied this to real estate. I applied this to a team leader in recruiting, right? I didn't apply it with my wife.
You didn't?
I did not, because this was way before I learned all this stuff.
But with your kids,
Well, with my kids, it's perfect. I can absolutely talk to my children so that their brain understands it without any confrontation, without anybody getting their feelings hurt, because I know who I'm talking to when I'm talking to my kids. The communication's much better, right?
I have a question.
Yes.
What would the sign be for a very lax but very smart kid? That's one of my kids. What would be that?
S profile.
S?
Uh-huh.
And that's what the least I am. Okay, that's fine.
D's and S's put them on.
The D and the S should be
Great
along.
relationship.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, do you guys need an S?
I'm leaving you guys with a cool little cheat sheet. Okay, I want to go through this just for 30 seconds. And on this cheat sheet, I want you to be able to assess who you're looking at and who you're talking to. And I want you to practice this. It's okay to practice this. The CEO of our company goes through. We have something else it's a corporate consulting company that set up a whole new disc for us called an AVA, and it's measured by numbers. And he's so good at this, he can walk up to Steve and say, "You're a 3-5-2-1," and that would mean that you're a high I, a S, and whatever else. It's all by numbers, and I am absolutely amazed at it. But when he does that, the reason why he does that, it's not to prove that he knows what he's talking about. It's because he can communicate directly with you. And instead of taking that S profile, it takes such a long time to move to the next spot, he can figure out a way faster to get you to move to that spot. And that's really what this is, you guys. It's moving you through a process. It's moving you through a quicker process so that you can get out and do the next thing of this that you want to go do. Okay? So this is our cheat sheet. High I, high D, high S, and then a high C on the bottom. What I want you to look is this stuff here. The stuff on the side and the top. Because here's your combinations. You said, what's a DI look like or an ID look like? Well, that person's going to be your top, and they're going to be very, very fast and aggressive type people. Very fast and aggressive type people. When you're talking with that person, you're going to move through things at a much quicker level than you would if you're talking with an SC, who at the bottom is steady and cautious. I'm going to give you another cheat. The D and the C are task, and they're thinkers. Task-oriented and thinkers. The S and the I are relationship and people-oriented. D's are cold, C's are cold is what that means. I's are warm, and S's are warm. Okay? Those are people that want to come up and give you a hug. The I's and the S's. The D's and the C's, how you doing? Okay? hands constantly, because you people have germs, and I don't like it. That's a D and a C profile. Where the S and the I, how you doing? Okay, and in a relationship, the S and the I profile are going to be the warm people also. Come here, they hold your hand. And they want to hold your hand. They want to walk arm in arm. Right? Put your arm around you and this kind of stuff. The D and the C, okay, we can hold hands. Right? Sitting in the car, your honey's going to reach across and grab your hand. It's not going to be a D or a C profile. That's going to be an I or an S profile. Okay? Does that make sense? Real easy to find out. So if I'm going to do a role play with somebody, and if I want to find out who somebody is, it's very simple, right? An I and an S person is going to do something a lot different than a C or a D profile is going to be. So if I were to stick my hand out like this, first of all, he looks at my hand before he shakes my hand. Right? You shake your hand? Exactly. Do I have to? Come on. Okay, looks at my hand and shakes my hand. Did it drive you crazy that you didn't grab my hand?
I did grab your hand, I'll do it again.
There you go. Okay. Where an S and I person is not going to be that way. They may pull them in. She's going to love this. Come here. She's going to love that. Does that make sense? And that's a real fast way to find out who you're dealing with. If after you've met somebody the second time, if they want to give you a hug, they're going to be that I or that S profile. If they continue to do this or continue to do one of these, it's going to be a DC profile. So learn these techniques, and you want to move somebody through faster. Okay? All right, any questions for me? Did we learn something?
Yeah.
Before I finish, I always like to find out what we call ahas. And ahas are something you didn't realize about a specific profile that you are, or a profile that maybe you're married to, or whatever. So give me 3 or 4. What did you guys learn? So I know. It's okay. I won't bite you.
I think it was more of a validation.
A validation
Because I'm
of who
looking
you
at
are.
Steve and I both side by side, and
Yep.
I'm like, the whole time,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
it's really easy to validate that.
Right.
Well, first I thought it was an I, and then I realized I'm an SC. But when I look at the thing, it says, that people think of me what I want to be perceived as an I. And I totally, that's it. Everything that I get it. It's pretty cool.
Good. Anybody else?
I think I learned I'd perform a little bit out of each way to relate to that person. I am cold, but I will walk out. I think I made everybody in this room laugh at one time or another.
I hope.
Now you have.
But I think it's very important to be able to see what Thomas, his eyes contact, and why they look at me and what I say. And I think this is good stuff.
So Darren, there's a word that I was taught by somebody. It's ontogeny.
Okay.
What it means is we individually are the sum of our DNA, mom and dad, and all the experiences we've lived from the time we were born to the
Yes.
moment called now.
Yeah.
And you can't change this
No.
because it's your ontogeny showing up.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You can fake it,
You can fake it.
but it doesn't stick.
Yeah. You can't fake it until you make it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Or you'll never make it.
Anybody else?
Do you think it's more important to know, one, who you are, or who everybody else is?
You got to know who you are before you can communicate with anybody else. You have to know who you are. And you have to realize that the chemistry, the vibe that I'm putting off to this gentleman. You have to know that when I stand this close to you, it's not comfortable for him.
Well, see, there I can change.
Exactly.
You're
Right? But if I stand this close to her, it's comfortable. In fact, I need to touch her. It's comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you guys?
So D's come across as assertive and telling. And what I learned from this is where I have to back check is, especially with my kids, and I should do it more with everybody, but with my children, if I come across as telling,
Yes.
when I'm really just trying to share,
Sure.
it comes across completely differently.
Yes.
So I gotta go back to, like, guys, I'm just trying to share. I know I'm emphatic in my point of view, and this is the way I see the world.
It
but
sounds
really
like you're
I'm-
being dominant.
Yeah, I'm just sharing.
So let me help you with that.
Friendship,
Yeah,
you gotta be passionate.
I want to help you with this. I have the opportunity of coaching our agents at Keller Williams too, and I enjoy doing it probably more than anything else. If somebody self-discovers, it means that much more to them. So in other words, if I help her self-discover that her boyfriend is a jerk, instead of telling her that her boyfriend's a jerk, as an example, I'm talking about for your kids,
Yeah.
right? It's going to become that much more. So tell me about what you did last night. What's your boyfriend's name? Joey. Tell me what you did with Joey last night.
Watch the movie.
Oh my gosh, what movie did you watch?
World War Z.
World War Z. I didn't know that. What's it all about?
Brad Pitt.
That's all I gotta say. So tell me about that movie. Was it good for you? Did you like it?
It was a thriller, it was entertaining, very much so.
Did Joey like it?
Yeah, he was into it. It was kind of like,
Did you take you to dinner before that?
If you consider Carl's Jr. dinner.
Who picked the movie?
Doug.
Who picked the movie? No, I just did it. Did you guys see what I just did? What did I help her self-discover? I mean,
He's a
Really
cheap
nice.
now I could have gone even deeper on this, right? And she could have been in tears in about 2 seconds when I start talking about what she did with Joey. Okay, I know mom's here, so I'm going to go through that problem. And showed that she's a cheap date, and he's cheap for not taking her, and he's got no money, he's not going to work to be amount to anything in life. Now, why I'm coming at
It's hypothetical.
Right.
It's hypothetical.
why I'm coming at this is you see the way I'm doing it? I'm asking questions and coming from a place of discovery and letting her self-discover instead of just saying, you're an idiot for going out with Joey.
But
Right?
you're not, right? Because it was just on the way.
Oh, it's just, yeah, absolutely, Joey. Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that was the only thing she knew about.
It was a
Do
barbecue.
you guys get the idea? So when you're talking with your kids, put all the letters away. When you're talking with your spouse, put all the letters away. Because I'll tell you why. They can't control their letters. You can, because you know now what you are. And if you come from that place of discovery, they're going to self-discover that they're too controlling. Right? They're going to come to a place that they need to, reel it in a little bit, whatever that story is going to be. But you can't tell them. It's the same thing with your clients. Same thing when recruiting. Right? And it's the same way. You find that out by asking questions. The person that holds the conversation is the person asking the questions, not the one talking. You guys know that, right? Just keep asking questions. And eventually they'll go, oh my God, I am with an absolute idiot. Good question. Any other questions?
Not really a question, but I think knowing this on a sales standpoint, at least for myself, you can kind of look at them now and kind of see if you can distinguish what letter they are quickly, then you can kind of look at how you have to approach that.
Yep.
Probably get more sales out of it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, you guys. The quicker you adjust yourself to knowing who that person is, the faster you can turn them, the more money you can make, and you get to move forward. And for the D's in the room, I don't like people, so it's very simple for me to move through them quicker than it is to sit there and hold their hand like a small child and walk them all the way through the place, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Darren, on behalf of the Triangle team.
thank you.
And the ownership, thank you for doing this.
Thank you. I have to run. I got 1 o'clock in Norco, so I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
Darren, before you go, do I have permission to put this on YouTube?
I think so, sure. Go
Thank you very much.
Scott wants to hug you.
That's the option.